Now that we have explored different operations we can do on the arrays, let's go ahead and see how we can easily process the arrays. What is the mechanism to easily process the arrays? Now suppose we have printed a lot of tickets throughout the day and we are storing those tickets in an array. Let's suppose at the end of the day we want to generate a report for all the ticket numbers that were generated throughout the day. How we can do that? In order to do that, we have to process this array somehow. Now one way to do it would be that we go through all the indices from 0 and we print them out. Right? Let's suppose we want to generate a report and then we print out all the ticket numbers. And we access it using the index of the ticket. Now, obviously, in order to do that, we have to generate a lot of print statements. Now, it's not practical to do that. If we have 100 tickets, we have to do these print statements 100 times. If we have 1,000 tickets, we have to do it 1,000 times. So that's not practical. So if you see, this is the repetitive task. And the number of times we have to repeat is also known because we know the size of this array. In this case, we have 3 values in the array. Okay, but it could be more. Now, since we already know how many times the task needs to be repeated, we have learned that definite loops can actually help us make this thing a lot shorter. And one of the way to implement definite loops is for loops. So let's see how we can shorten this report printing using for loops. So in Python, we can do that very easily using the for loop. So in for loop, we say that there is a variable called ticket which keeps track of all the tickets within the array. Okay, and the array is also defined here, represented with this plural tickets variable. Now what it will do is it will basically behind the scenes will initialize all these counters, indices. It will also put the value of that ticket inside this variable ticket so that we can access that just using this ticket variable. So as you see, we have used only 2 lines of code to process this whole array using for loops very easily. Now in some programming languages, you would have to keep track of the length of the array and then you have to initialize a counter to go over the array indices one by one. Python just makes it a lot more easier for us to process the arrays using this for loop. Now let's suppose if we did not have the for loop as we have discussed before, how are we going to process the arrays? In that case, we can do that using while loops as well. We can define an variable size of array. In this case, in our example, it's size 4. And then we can start at index equals 0 using while loop. We can say if index is less than size of array, as long as the index is less than size of array, we can print the ticket and we have to access this ticket number using the index. So currently, since we start at index 0, we can say tickets array and referenced by index. Now let's say our index starting point is 0. Okay, it will go ahead, check that index is less than 4, 0 is less than 4. It will print the ticket by accessing the tickets array at index 0. Okay, so this is 0 index, 1, 2 and 3. Now over here we have to increment the index value because we have already processed that one ticket. So we increment the index by 1. In this case, index value is 1. 1 is still less than 4. it will go ahead and print the ticket at index number 1, increment the index, it will become 2, 2 is still less than 4, print the ticket, increment the ticket, index is now at 3, 3 is less than 4, print the ticket and increment the index to 4, 4 is less than 4 now evaluates to false, it will exit this while loop and continue with the rest of the program. So we can actually process arrays using while loop and using the following approach. You may be thinking, since we have the for loop that makes it a lot easier for us to process arrays, why would I ever want to use the while loop and so much complication of keeping track of the counters and things like that? There may be some scenarios where you would have to resort to the while loop, and one such scenario is, let's suppose if you have to process this array, but you want to process only even numbered indices, right? So index number 0, index number 2, and so forth, right? How can you do that? You can basically do that very easily by incrementing this index by 2. So you are initializing the index to 0, print the ticket, and then you increment your index by 2, so that now the index, instead of pointing to index number 1, it now points to index number 2, and you process the ticket again and so forth. So that way you can control what elements of array you want to process using this while loop.